In this new lecture on French astrology, I would like to treat the question of the resistance by practitioners of astrology to new designs, new patterns, which are proposed by astrologers. I'm very much interested, in fact, by the contradictions within the astrological community, which have different social and psychological reasons and causes and professional aspects. I think that a community which is healthy, morally, intellectually, has to be able to accept reforms. But it is necessary to understand what is the meaning and the interest of reforms. A reform has this importance that it affords to clean the process. Every process, after a certain time, has to be cleaned. There are mistakes, there are distortion, corruptions, things which aggregate, things which are added, experiments which have failed, changes which are not very successful, etc., etc. So it's necessary to clean all this and to restore things to an original stage. And that is what astrologers, it seems to me, in France, or probably somewhere else, refuse to accept. Or I would even say they now refuse to accept what they would have accepted in the 50s, 60s, 70s. When reform astrology was at its peak, at its highest level of influence. There might be some historical reason for that change towards reforms in France. Reforms by Coquelin, by Barbeau, by other searchers like Neroman or Nicolas, etc. It seems that these people have been discredited. They have been considered as being outside the real thing. And practitioners of astrology, in general, stick to a sort of tradition which hasn't changed for centuries, except concerning the Trans-Saturnian, of course. And that's all. They also refuse to get rid of anything. They keep the rulerships, they keep the houses with their significations, divinatory significations, they keep everything. And because reform is also the idea of cleaning, that is to get rid of everything. So the process, the cyclical process, doesn't work. And it is a crisis for that reason. But, of course, there are more specific reasons, more conjectural reasons. And one of the reasons is concerned by my own attitude, which is, I must agree, is a little extreme. That is the refusal of the chart, the refusal of the interpretation of the chart, of the natal chart, of any chart at all. the rejection of the process, of the concept itself of chart, of what we call in French, curiously, the theme, the theme. We don't know why it has been called like that. It was been called like that in the 17th century. And suddenly this word appears, and this is a usual word. We don't say in France la carte. We say the theme, the theme. The theme, as a matter of fact, it is more used in music, a certain theme which returns, like motive. It is the idea of a movement, the theme. And precisely the chart is not exactly that. The theme has something to do with the chart, with the cycle. So there is a semantic problem here, which is by itself bizarre. Okay. So I was saying that the idea of considering the chart as something which is not necessarily, absolutely necessary in astrology is a little provocative. And of course, it can only reinforce a certain mistrust towards reformers, since reformers are becoming more and more radical. And so, this is a fact. The discussion is here. If you have to return to original stage, where do you stop? What is the basis? What is the real basis? And what is only additions, adjunctions, which can perfectly be neglected in the future, I think. But in fact, as I mentioned it in the previous lecture, there is an opposition between natural astrology and judiciary astrology, genetiacal astrology, or whatever you call it, natal chart astrology. And in the 16th century, in the Renaissance, or later on, attacks against astrology were not toward natural astrology, but toward the judgments of astrology. Today, this distinction is not very clear in the mind of most astrologers. And the distinction, the frontier, has moved a little. But basically, we have to return to this essential distinction, which is that on one side, you have general astrology, mundane astrology, which paradoxically corresponds rather well to the astrology of the 12 signs, for instance, in the columns of the newspapers. Well, at least people say I'm a certain sign. I know I am not the only one, so I'm not centered on my own person, my only personality. I'm not asking for a unique representation of myself, of my destiny. I know that I share my situation with others. And this attitude, which exists, most of people in France only know astrology through the 12 signs, so which is a sort of natural astrology. But the astrological milieu, astrological community of specialists and experts and practitioners hate this sort of astrology. They hate it. They joke about it and say, well, what do you think? How can you imagine that everybody who is under Aries or Taurus has the same destiny? They are exaggerating in their criticism. It's obvious that nobody says that because you are born under a certain sign, you have the same destiny as all the people who were born under the same sign. Even if there is a text connected with it, this text affords all sorts of interpretation. Okay? So it's ridiculous to say that because it's one text, it means only one thing. So I don't think the astrologers who say that are really thinking when they say that it's a polemical argument, because they want to defend, most of all, the idea that the real astrology is the individual, personal astrology, which is what one French astrologer who immigrated to America, like Rudyard, thinks in a way. Yeah? The problem is today that we don't know what is natural astrology. We don't know what is normal astrology. We know that there are the 12 signs, but so it has nothing to do with the planets really, apart from the sun. So, in fact, there is a sort of lack of existence of this natural astrology. I try with my astrocyclone to rebuild this natural astrology and to say this is a natural, normal, general system. So since this doesn't exist really yet, the only astrology is, in fact, this natal astrology. So it's not very clear. And it's like in politics sometimes, you become more left, more right, depends from time to time. And now they say astrology is a real natural astrology. This judicial astrology is a real astrology. And on the other side, you have divinatory system, tarot, geomancy, and etc. So they have another group on their right. If you see, if I take the example of political schemes here, I'm not so right because somebody is more to my right or to my left. It's also to deal with the French political situation. So it has changed. It has been decentered. It's not exactly where it should be. But what I think is, and I called that last time black magic or black astrology versus white astrology, I think that those astrologers who are specialized in the interpretation, analysis of a specific chart, first of all, they have a certain know-how. They don't want to give up this knowledge, which took sometimes a long time to master, I would say. So I don't think they realize exactly what they are doing. In fact, those astrologers who are practicing this individual astrology. The expression individual astrology is a sort of contradiction by itself, an oxymoron. I mean, astrology cannot be really individual. So what I think as an historian of astrology is that it's a sort of anti-astrology or counter-astrology, magical astrology, which has developed probably already in antiquity, since we have no charts from that time, and it has been developed in the framework of astrology, but as a sort of possibility to neutralize astrology by astrology, through astrology. So it's a vaccination. In my work on Jewish astrology, which was one of my theses, I studied the magical astrology and in the Talmud, for instance, they were always saying, okay, a man was born and in his chart or in his destiny it was written that he would do that and that. But he was a pious Jew, a religious Jew, or but he changed his name or whatever, and that afforded him to escape from what was written. So those people, they don't say astrology doesn't exist, but as they say it exists, but there were ways to neutralize it. And it's more or less what the modern astrology, I would say they say that, but they act as if they were saying. So there's a lot of things they do not say, but which they do really, in fact, achieve, which makes the discussion still more complex. I refer to Garfinkel and ethnomethodology, who insisted, in fact, that communities do not necessarily account for what they are really doing. And they have another speech which is not connected really with the reality of what they do. It is true for astrologers. Astrologers, in fact, without knowing, without being conscious of it, are, in fact, entering in the field of magic, of trying to escape from the astrological determinism. In fact, the chart is not the expression of the astrological determinism, it is a sort of way to escape from it. That's a confusion. So, they do not understand, those astrologers, that in fact someone who wants to have his own chart predicted, interpreted, in fact is asking, is demanding that the astrologer will find a way to escape from what should be done, what is expected, in fact. For instance, and I think in many ways it is what brings people to astrologers, but also to all sorts of divinations. I know that logically that should have happened in my life. I know that. Logically, because I am a logical person, I know that logically this is what should happen. But I hope that maybe someone will help me not to submit to this law, not to submit to this process. I want to be an exception. I want to be treated exceptionally, not to have to pay for my mistakes, for what happened in my life, and I want something different to happen, something unexpected to happen. I want a prediction. In the word prediction you have the word dict, which in French means to say. I want you to say something about me which will change the course of things. I want you to interfere with the course of change. You will say things about me, about my person, about my future, which will not be what should really have happened if you had not said what you have said, if you had not predicted what you have predicted. Predicted means you say things. You say things and you have the power to say something, and by saying this, by the verb, by the strength of the word, that will happen, and that will not be what would have happened otherwise. It's complex. So it's funny because the astrologer doesn't know about that. He's not conscious of that. The client doesn't know either exactly what he's expecting, but it is what it is expected, because if you reason, if you think deeply about that, we know perfectly that the people are conscious that you are not a unique case. You have certain things which have a logical development. They know that. So, in fact, although they tell me what is for me in store. It's not what they are really asking. They don't want the person to tell things which should happen, but things which would happen, which will happen because there will be an interference, because the astrologer or whatever is, the tarologist, the geomentist, whatever, says. And by the unique fact that he says things, maybe things which are not true, which are not logical, he will create another reality. That's why also I think, and I will end on that point, that people do not come to astrology or to the astrologer to know if they say the truth. They want the astrologer to invent a new truth, a new path, a new situation, a new development, and something which will not be what would have happened normally.